Doubt is a quiet killer. It doesn't announce its arrival like fear, with a pounding heart and sweaty palms. It doesn't rage like anger or crush like grief. No, a doubt is softer, more cunning. It whispers. It plants seeds. It tells you maybe you're not ready, maybe you're not good enough, maybe you should wait. And in those whispers, dreams dissolve. Potential is buried. Life becomes a constant negotiation between what you want and what you're willing to risk. We imagine that the enemy is outside, competition, bad luck, difficult circumstances, but often, the greatest enemy lives in our own minds. The Stoics knew this. Long before modern psychology studied self-esteem, limiting beliefs, or the inner critic, they had already mapped the terrain of the mind and identified the dangers lurking there. For them, self-mastery was not about defeating the world, but about governing the self. And central to that was learning how to silence doubt. Not by pretending it doesn't exist, but by stripping it of its power. Think of Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, ruler of millions, commander of legions. Even he admitted, in his private writings, that he had to wrestle with hesitation and uncertainty. In Meditations, he speaks to himself like a general rallying his troops. If it is endurable, then endure it. Stop complaining. He didn't deny that challenges existed, he simply refused to give them more space than they deserved. That's the Stoic way. Doubt may knock on your door, but you decide whether it comes in and sits down. The modern world gives doubt fertile ground. Social media makes us compare our every moment to someone else's highlight reel. News cycles remind us of everything we can't control. Productivity culture tells us we're always behind. In such an environment, doubt doesn't even need to work hard, it simply grows like a weed in the cracks of our confidence. Yet the Stoics remind us that the mind is a garden, and you are the gardener. You cannot stop weeds from appearing, but you can choose which ones to water. Epictetus, who was born a slave and walked with a limp for most of his life, became one of the most influential philosophers of his time. If anyone had reason to doubt himself, it was him. But he refused to measure his worth by the things he could not control. His focus was razor-sharp: what is within my power, and what is not? This question became his sword against doubt. Because most doubts come from obsessing over things outside our control, other people's opinions, unpredictable outcomes, the shifting tides of fortune. Epictetus cut through them by returning, again and again, to what he could command: his thoughts, his actions, his character. Here's the paradox: doubt will never fully disappear. The Stoics knew that. Their aim was not to build an unshakable belief that never wavered, but to build the skill of acting despite doubt. The Stoic soldier doesn't wait for perfect certainty before marching into battle. He moves because it is the right thing to do, because he has decided, and because hesitation is the enemy of virtue. Seneca put it clearly: we suffer more in imagination than in reality. Doubt thrives in the imagination. It invents worst-case scenarios, magnifies small risks, turns possibility into catastrophe. The antidote is reality. Do the thing. Face the test. Make the move. The moment you step into action, doubt loses much of its grip because it can no longer feed on your hesitation. And yet, action without clarity is just motion. The Stoics didn't run around blindly, they acted with intention. That's where self-mastery comes in. It's not just about silencing the voice that says you can't, it's about amplifying the voice that says this is who I am, and this is how I will live. Self-mastery begins with a deep understanding of your values, those unshakable principles that no doubt, fear, or outside force can touch. When Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If it is not right, do not do it, if it is not true, do not say it," he was laying down a simple, powerful filter for action. This is the essence of Stoic self-mastery: act in alignment with virtue, not impulse. When you know your compass points, doubt becomes easier to manage, because you have something more reliable than feelings to guide you. Feelings can be swayed by fear, fatigue, or envy. Values stand like mountains. Consider this: most doubts are not actually about capability, they're about identity. We don't just wonder, can I do this? We wonder, am I the kind of person who can do this? The Stoics answered that by focusing on becoming the kind of person they respected, the external results mattered less than the internal integrity. In this way, they robbed doubt of its sharpest weapon, the attack on the self. This is where discipline enters the picture. Self-mastery is not achieved through occasional bursts of motivation. It is built, brick by brick, in the mundane, repetitive acts of discipline. Discipline silences doubt not by arguing with it, but by overwhelming it with evidence. When you keep promises to yourself, whether that's rising early, finishing the work you started, or controlling your temper, you build a track record that your mind can't ignore. Over time, doubt becomes quieter because you have shown, through consistent action, that you can be trusted. But Stoic discipline isn't just about doing more, it's about doing less of what doesn't matter. In our age of distraction, every notification, every new opportunity, every random worry is a chance for doubt to slip in. The Stoics practiced what we might call philosophical minimalism, cutting away the inessential so they could focus on the vital. Marcus Aurelius urged himself to concentrate every minute like a Roman, on doing what's in front of you with precise and genuine seriousness. This is the discipline of presence. When you are fully engaged in the task at hand, there's no room for the mind to wander into what if. Now, some will say, but what if I fail? That's the heart of doubt, isn't it? The fear of failure. The Stoics had a blunt answer: you will fail, sometimes. And that's fine. Failure is not an indictment of your worth, it's part of the path. To a Stoic, failure is feedback, not a final judgment. It's an opportunity to practice resilience, adaptability, and humility. In fact, the fear of failure is often more damaging than failure itself, because it keeps you from trying at all. Epictetus taught that it's not the event, but our opinion about the event, that determines our response. If you believe that failure defines you, you'll avoid risk and live small. If you see failure as a teacher, you'll keep moving forward. In this way, self-mastery is less about controlling the world and more about controlling the story you tell yourself about the world. And this brings us to perhaps the most powerful Stoic tool for silencing doubt, the practice of reframing. When Marcus Aurelius faced setbacks, he didn't label them as disasters, he called them opportunities. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. Doubt says, this obstacle proves you're not ready. Stoicism replies, this obstacle is how you'll become ready. It's a complete reversal of perspective, and it turns what could paralyze you into something that empowers you. Silencing doubt is not about forcefully suppressing it, it's about replacing it with clarity, purpose, and disciplined action. It's about building such a deep trust in your own principles that temporary uncertainty can't shake you. It's about remembering that your worth is not on trial every time you try something new. In practical terms, this means cultivating habits that keep your mind strong. Start your mornings with reflection, as Marcus did, reminding yourself of what you can control and what you cannot. Throughout the day, pause to examine your thoughts. Is this fear based on fact or on fiction? Is this hesitation protecting me, or is it keeping me small? In the evening, review your actions, not to punish yourself for mistakes, but to learn from them. This cycle of reflection and correction is the engine of self-mastery. Over time, something shifts. Doubt may still knock, but it doesn't stay as long. It no longer speaks with authority. You begin to move through life with a calm assurance, not because you think you'll win every time, but because you know you'll handle whatever comes. That is the Stoic's gift, not a life without storms, but the ability to stand firm in the rain. In a noisy, chaotic world, that kind of inner stillness is rare. And it's not given, it's earned, through the patient, daily work of aligning your actions with your values, your focus with your purpose, your thoughts with the truth. This is the real key to self-mastery. And when you live this way, doubts will still come, but they will find the door closed, the mind steady, and the spirit unshaken. Because the truth is, doubt doesn't define you. Action does. Character does. And in the end, the Stoic knows that the greatest victory is not over others, but over the self.